Today I want to share with you part of a conversation I had with Angela last week. We were discussing all that's been going on in our world, about the anxiety, the stress, the fear that so many of us are dealing with. Angela shared about her grandparents, Yelta and Tina Vanderzee. When fear begins to grab hold of hers, she says, one of the things that I think about are my grandma and grandpa. Her grandparents lived in Holland during World War II. They were part of the secret resistance during the war. They were the kind of people who actually hid Jews in their barn and they hid them in their fields. They would have Nazis knock on their door, checking things out, trying to find out what's going on. They chose to help anyway. They would stop her grandpa on his bike. Had they known that he had meat for his family, she said they would have shot him on the spot. He chose to help anyway. In addition to traveling on his bike with meat, she said my grandpa would also carry weapons to fight the Germans and keep them from invading and taking over Holland. The weapons were strategically placed under his hay. He would travel to another farmer and then they would transfer it into another wagon. He would go to the checkpoint not knowing what had been loaded into his wagon. Instead, he'd go and inside of the hay, he'd deliver it, and he never knew what was going to happen. He never knew what happened. But he always said that he was going to live and he was going to rely on his faith. I loved what Angela said next. She said, God was with them and their family, their faith runs through my veins. I think so many are forgetting all the trials that God's children have gone through, she said. They forget about what they've gone through in the past and more importantly, that they were carried through it in the past. Sometimes reminding people, she said myself included, that God has seen people through these challenging times like we're experiencing now, or even worse times than we're experiencing now. But he always helps create a sense of peace, and that creates a sense of peace for Angela as well. Then she adds this, she said, my grandpa and his fellow select few resistant members, they were memorizing Psalm 91. I was later educated on why they did that. He said, because if we memorize it, then the enemy cannot take it away. During World War II, that was what many people did. They memorized God's word. They secured it in their hearts, away from the enemy. Angela tells me that she's now bookmarked Psalm 91 in her Bible, and she reads it when fear tries to creep in. When I asked if I could share part of her story, Angela says, of course. I would be honored if you would share that about my grandparents, because I'm so proud to be their granddaughter. You see, her grandparents have left a legacy of faith. Guess what? You and I, we have choices to make this week during these challenging times. And we get to choose to live by faith or by fear. But whatever our choices, we're going to leave behind a legacy. So let's you and I commit to leave a legacy of faith, just like Angela's grandparents did. Oh, by the way, Psalm 91, this is the first two verses. It says, those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him. Would you trust him today?